Hello and welcome to the WAM Theatre Spotlight series. In this series, WAM invites audiences into conversations with some of this season's groundbreaking theatre artists to learn about their process and how their work intersects with activism. I'm Tatiana Godfrey, and I'm the WAM Theatre Company Dramaturg. Today, we'll be talking with Amy Berryman, who is the playwright of New GALILEOS, which is in our Fresh Take series. And before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge with gratitude and humility that WAM Theatre is based on the ancestral homelands of the Mohican people, who are the indigenous peoples of this land. Despite tremendous hardship in being forced from here, today their community resides in Wisconsin and is known as the Stockbridge-Munsee community. We pay honor and respect to their ancestors past and present as we commit to building a more inclusive and equitable space for all. Please check out the land acknowledgement page on our website, whamtheatre.com, and join us in some of the action steps that we're taking. And now I'm going to say, hey, what's up, Amy? How's it going?
What's up? It's going good. How about you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it's good to see you.
See you too.
So I'm going to jump right in. We're doing a reading of New GALILEOS, which is so much fun. We really love this play. And I was wondering if you could talk about the genesis of it.
Sure. So I was living in New York for a long time and was a part of a theater community that did this monthly sort of pressure cooker event called Shots. That was it was every month. You were, as a writer, paired with a director and a handful of actors, and you were given a theme and like a couple of ingredients to put into a 10-minute play that was for these specific actors. And so you wrote it in like a week, and then they rehearsed it for 2 weeks, and then put it up at the Crane Theater on the Lower East Side every month. Super fun, just like cool, fun group of people. And this play, it was written, I want to say in 2017 or like late 2016, something like that. Like definitely a Trump era play. But anyway, it came from this like 10-minute piece that I wrote because I was given 3 women actors, and the theme was, I want to say it was like dystopia or something, or it was Brave New World shots essentially. So, and Trump had just left the Paris Climate Agreement, and like my cousin is a marine biologist, and we'd been having a lot of conversations about climate and just her frustration and anger, and her hearing all these stories about friends of hers who'd been told to like take the words climate change out of their grant proposals, just like really intense stuff that all kind of manifested in this idea that there's these 3 women in a cell, and for the short play it was just like they are taken out one by one. And so then it was chosen, I submitted it to the same theater company to be developed into a full length, and it was picked as one of the like 4 plays that over the course of like 9 months we all met once a month and shared pages. And I had this idea for a 4th character that would play a person in each of these women's lives and play an interrogator. And it was kind of just from like a very intuitive place. Like I didn't have a specific thematic reason, or anything, but I also had seen so many plays where like men got to play roles like that, where they got to do a bunch of different characters. And so I was really interested in a play where a woman could do that. And then as I kept developing it, it kind of became something to do with like censorship, or, like that theme kind of came into the play as well, and felt like that casting choice sort of supported it. So yeah, those are some of the origins of it. It really came from like these questions that I have about climate that are like, what are we going to do when it's too late? Which my play Walden really is examining in a different way. And this play is sort of looking at it from an angle of what if we're past the point of like fixing the planet just by reducing emissions, what happens if we manipulate the atmosphere? Like from the time I started writing the play until now, geoengineering as an idea has actually become way more mainstream and way less taboo in scientific communities. Like I developed this play with some people at Caltech and got to have like some very cool conversations with real scientists who were kind of like they took issue with the fact that I like was kind of equating geoengineering with fascism or something. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. Like how to make it more complicated, because they feel like at this point it is a little more complicated. So that was like some really interesting perspective and also terrifying perspective to get. And yeah, so this place had a really interesting journey, although it hasn't yet gotten to have like a full production. And I think, it was written also before this pandemic, so I think that there will also need to be eventually some changes to sort of accommodate for like what we know now. And it feels still so relevant, or continues to get more relevant, because there's such a mistrust of science right now, and it feels like really in line with that theme, unfortunately. Those are some of the origins. I just talked for a long time, but
You are making my job easy. Thank you.
hey,
For me, but also for all the people watching, can you talk a little bit about what geoengineering is?
yes. So I'm not a scientist, but geoengineering, like the easiest way to describe it is the idea of us as humans manipulating our own atmosphere in order to help reduce our emissions, help reverse the damage we've done to the planet. Oh shoot, I hope I can explain this okay. One of the things that falls under the umbrella of geoengineering is solar radiation, SRL or something, that where it's like you would put, oh my God, I feel so bad that I am not.
You already know more about it than I do. I'm like so curious.
Yeah, so it's like throwing, spraying aerosols into the air that would reflect the sun's rays back out, therefore helping reduce emissions, reducing heat here. There's definitely way more easier explanations and more thorough explanations if you look up, geoengineering, but it definitely isn't something that people are really talking about. But it was something that during Trump's presidency, scientists were like a little worried that he would learn about this concept and just sort of be like, oh yeah, this will fix it, let's do this. But what we don't know is if we were to start manipulating the atmosphere ourselves rather than trying to change our way of life holistically and reducing emissions that way, is we don't know what will happen, what kind of weather it might create in parts of the world that aren't as, on the radar of us in the first world. Like, we don't know how it would affect small islands. We don't know, and we also don't know how it would affect everything if we were to start it and then stop. So it's a very risky thing, but it does feel like something that, with the right, technology is not all bad. Obviously, technology is great. Here we are on Zoom right now together. But I think there is something, that can be dangerous about relying on that rather than looking at it from a holistic approach. And I think probably in the end, it would be a combination of both things, where it's like we need to reduce emissions in some way. Probably we're going to continue to get more and more advanced technology like carbon capture that can also help us with the problem. And it might be like a, marrying of the two things. But yeah, geoengineering is mainly the idea that we as humans would manipulate our own atmosphere to help improve our situation with the climate, I think.
Great, thank you. Now I feel like I have a good understanding of it now.
Good.
You mentioned your play Walden, which you said touches on an idea of climate change from another perspective. And my headcanon is that New GALILEOS and Walden exist in the same universe.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that.
Okay, great. You heard it here. It's confirmed. They exist in the same universe.
So
what do you, in your biggest dreams, like, can you do some positing about like what a future would look like in which we're like actually trying to address the problem of climate change?
Yeah, I feel like both of those plays sort of came from a perspective of me being afraid. Like both of them came from like a climate anxiety, I feel like, or an anxiety about what could go wrong and what could happen. I think that it's hard to know what the solutions are. They feel both like individual and then in such a larger way they feel systemic, and at the same time, like, the only way to change systems is for, I mean, there's many ways to change systems, but one of the ways is public pressure. And I think, I would hope and envision that we start to have leaders who want to do more than just appease their corporate, lobbyists, and actually take action and actually implement something like a Green New Deal, or looking at, we talked a lot in the rehearsals at TheatreWorks Hartford with Walden about like the connection to the earth and the connection to, this place that we have that we could still care for in a different way, that we've become so far away from in our very, not like convenient daily lives, that the more connected we can get to the earth and to each other in community, I think that those are some of the ways forward, that are also questions I feel like I'm investigating in my play. Like, how do we live when this is the future that's barreling towards us? How do we live together in community? But I think that a lot of systems, a lot of power structures have to change. I actually have just been thinking a lot about like the whole like trajectory of how automobiles became the main way that we get around, and how like that was not initially the plan, and that the automobile industry basically, I'm not the best historian in this case, but like my understanding is that they kind of commandeered the mass transit systems, that there were meant to be more trains, and then cars became so popular, and that industry basically took over in a way that like I think has been really damaging and could be really beneficial. I think that's a huge part of like AOC's Green New Deal, is focusing more on public transit, and yeah, those are all questions. Like, I guess my main answer is like, I don't know. And like, I think that imagining futures, both futures that like serve as a warning sign, but also futures that contain some sort of hope and some sort of like vision of what the future could be. I think both those stories are really important in how we try to bring attention to this crisis, I guess.
That's great. Thank you for dreaming for me, dreaming aloud.
I mean, I dream and worry about it too much, but yeah.
Something different. What are you working on right now?
My gosh, great question. I am working on a number of things. I'm out in LA currently, and I'm working on a pilot that is about sex education in Texas, to like totally take us away from science, but kind of. But I partially grew up in Texas, and I'm really interested in like how repression can, affect our whole lives and what it does to people. And I think Texas right now is such an interesting, almost dystopian place, to bring it back around to dystopia, just with all the laws being passed and everything. But it is, it's kind of a comedy. It's like a dramedy. So I'm working on that and trying to kind of shop that around. I have a lot of new play ideas. I just rewrote a play that a grad school in London is doing that I'm going to go and get to see, which I'm so excited about, called Epiphany. That's sort of like a queer Shakespeare in Love. It's it's an all-female production of Twelfth Night and Present Day, and it goes back and forth between that and the first production of Twelfth Night in 1601, which is all men. And two of the people in both worlds are in love with each other, but one is married to someone of the opposite sex. And hilarity ensues, like about gender, performance, all the themes that are present in Twelfth Night, but it's kind of like in conversation with that. So I've been working on that as well.
That sounds fun.
It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for spending some time with me today.
Gosh, of course. This was really great. I, talked your ear off, but it's all good.
No, that's great. That was the purpose.
Doing the play. Like,
yes.
It's just fun.
So we'll see you around next time.
All right. Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.